Hello, welcome to Keep Blooming. I'm your host, Liz Montigny. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Lilia Grundy. She is the founder of Catholic Women Professionals. She created a place for Catholic women to get resources on our beautiful faith and tackle the daily challenges in the workplace. At the same time, connecting and networking with other Catholic working women, business owners, women in business. So tune in and find out the subtle and not so subtle ways we can recruit for Team Jesus while in the workplace. Let's get growing and keep blooming. Do you want simple steps to level up your mind, body, and spirit, or encouragement as you navigate the challenges of motherhood? Or maybe you need a dose of hope to achieve that goal? Then you've tuned in to the right podcast. This is Keep Blooming, and I'm your host, Liz Montigny. Each week, I'll encourage you to drop the hustle mentality for hope and act on the dreams God has put on your heart. I'm a licensed Ziegler life coach. I've created a theater ministry, and like you, I'm doing all the things as a Catholic, a wife, and a mom to 3 boys. So let's get growing and keep blooming. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Keep Blooming. I have a guest for you today, Lilia Grundy. She is going to be talking to us about faith in the workplace. I know on this podcast, I have not touched much on that career spoke on the Wheel of Life, and I think we are overdue to do that, especially still being early on in our new year. So for those of you listening, we know that I always start our conversations rooted in truth. So I do that with a little Lectio Divina. So we're going to take a look at Galatians chapter 6. And this is verses 9 through 10. Let us not grow tired of doing good, for in due time we shall reap our harvest if we do not give up. So then, while we have the opportunity, let us do good to all, but especially to those who belong to the family of faith. I love the part about while we have the opportunity, right? We have an opportunity every day. Every day is a new day. So we have the opportunity to do good. And to me, that means serve. So we're going to be diving into all of that today in my conversation with Lilia. So Lilia, welcome.
Thank you. It's so great to be with you, Liz.
Yes, thanks for being here. This conversation has been a long time coming. So I'm so glad you're here. And Lilia, I met you on the interwebs through your amazing group called Catholic Women Professionals. And I found you, we dived in, we did a lot of Zooms together. It's just a great place to meet other Catholic women in the workplace, faith-based women out there in leadership roles. And I've just loved what you've created, and I wanted to hear more about it. So thought it would be a great time to share with everybody. So Lilia, tell us more about you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was such a blessing to meet and connect with you, Liz. I do remember you joining our CWP virtual meetups, and I was so excited every time you would join because you added so much depth to our conversation. And, everyone comes from a different story, right? And so to share everyone's story, it's such a gift. So I'm so glad that, God brought us together and we do other things, and I think we're like-minded. So it's just been a blessing to get to know you as a friend and a counterpart really in the business world, right? So the birth of CWP, as I call it, how did Catholic Women Professionals come to be? And as I was reflecting on this, it hasn't been a long time. It's actually quite recent that I had what some Catholics would call a reversion, or, coming back. Even though I've been raised a cradle Catholic, the foundation was there, but I really wasn't truly living my faith. And so when you read the verse here from Galatians about there's a time really there's a time for everything, right?
Yeah.
And when that harvest is reaped, we do not know. The earth will tell us. I feel like God was nudging me for sure. A couple of years ago, in the height of the pandemic, where my twin girls reminded me of the actual incident, as I was having a conversation with my husband in the kitchen, and they overheard me kind of begin to cry as I was telling him, I just feel like something is missing in my life, and things were good. Our family was blessed with health, and we weren't struggling as others were around us. But I do remember me saying these things, that there was a void and that I didn't feel like I was doing what I was supposed to do. I had no idea where that was coming from. But looking back now, I was like, wow, it's so amazing to see. And I came across a quote from Matthew Kelly, Dynamic Catholic, where he says, if you're feeling that feeling that something is missing, that's great. That's a sign that something great is going to happen. Now, I wish I had known that back then, but here I was just kind of wondering, what is in store for me. And a lot of the parishes were closed during COVID, right?
Yes.
We didn't have that community. But something in me just went onto the internet to search the parishes that were open, that were offering Mass. And by God's grace, I stumbled on a parish that became now my home parish, but at the time wasn't, that was offering Mass weekly. And so when I went to Mass there, the pastor just had a way of talking to everyone, and words that hit home. And it so happened at that time he was promoting the spiritual challenge of Exodus 90 for men, and Magnify 90 for women. So I had no idea what that was all about, but I did some additional research and found out, wow, this is going to be tough. I don't know if I can do this, especially if you look at Exodus 90 for men. I mean, those spiritual disciplines are quite rigorous. So I wasn't quite sure if I would be able to do it, but the Holy Spirit, again, was just nudging me to try. And I can say, honestly, after completing the program, I was transformed. In the midst of our small groups during the program, I connected with other parishioners, female parishioners, who were similar to me in that we were working women, corporate, church, you name it. And it became apparent to me that there was this missing link to connecting with Catholic women in the workplace. That was the seed that really was planted for me during that time. And the more we progressed into the program, I really felt a calling to launch something that would connect us together, because really throughout this whole time frame, it was loneliness that I was feeling, not being connected to other women. So yeah, then that's how CWP was born. Luckily, I have a marketing background, so I was able to quickly put up a website and some social media platforms, and started really small, advertising this in the local parish. Unbeknownst to me, the word spread and had really become, the word really grew across the country, and even internationally. We've had some visitors, chime into our virtual meetups across the globe. So it's been such a gift.
Yes, it has. Thank you for sharing that. And as you were sharing your story of how this came together, I heard a couple of things that I hear a lot with my own clients, is that spiritual piece where they feel like something is lacking. And it is that spiritual piece. It is that time where you need to dig a little deeper and figure out what your relationship is with God and what that looks like. And especially, I think, for so many of us, during the past 3 years or so, especially during lockdown, where we were so isolated, there was a loneliness there, and that you lose that sense of community. And so with that, though, I think it really heightened what people want from life, and it made people realize, what have I been doing this whole time? Is it really what I want to do? Because look at this, all of a sudden life is short, and it was very obvious that life is short. So I also think it's so interesting too. Did you say that your daughters reminded you of this conversation that they heard? Or
They did. I don't know how and why, but it was great for me to recognize that.
Yeah, Yeah, and it's from the mouths of babes kind of thing, right? And they're just like innocent, like, remember that
Yes,
time we're talking? Yeah.
exactly.
That's amazing. So tell me a little, I mean, hey, I'm in the group, I've experienced the group, but for those listening, for the women listening, what is Catholic women professionals? Sounds kind of broad, but like, what is it that you're talking about in this group? Like, if you were to describe the group, what would you say?
Right. Ultimately, I created the group to connect like-minded working women of faith to come together, to share our struggles in the workplace. The majority of us work in corporate. I have myself worked in corporate world, over 20 years, NBC Television, Telemundo Network, Kraft Foods, major brands in the US, where again, I was, a cradle Catholic, but never really living my faith in the workplace. So, I wanted to create a group where if I could even help just one woman grow in her faith, then that would be a win, right? Because I
Yeah.
know definitely the women in my parish have touched me. Magnify has impacted me. So I wanted to give that back. And that's a big part of our parish too, is discipleship missionaries, right? We're on a mission to spread the word and to help others. So again, going back to Galatians, where you said, we have a purpose. Time is limited. And so every single day we need to be sharing the faith because we don't have that much time.
That is so true, right on. And I think, this group is important in the sense that, with what we were just talking about earlier in terms of community and loneliness, but then in your talk of mission and sharing our faith, I think sometimes Catholic women can feel like they're on an island, especially if they're in corporate or, just in a secular setting.
Right.
And it can feel really like, am I the, floating out here by myself? Like,
Am I the only Catholic in the workplace here?
yeah, like, how does this work? I'm wondering, because I've been in corporate too. I was in corporate for about 10 years before we started a family. And I was very fortunate. I had for the most part, very good managers. But so I could definitely see where there were moments of, wow, I don't know that I can align myself with this because of my faith, which is a sticky situation. Or there were just some conversations, around the quote unquote water cooler that you just couldn't partake in or something like that, right? So what, when you say, if I can just help one woman, deepen her faith in this group, when we think about Catholic women professionals in their secular workplace, what do you hope that they bring to it, or what would you suggest? Like, how's a way to live our faith in that kind of environment?
Absolutely. I would say number one by far is to simply start a relationship with our Lord, right? Because when we start a relationship, we begin to know him. And we begin to understand, the truth is revealed. For so long, I thought I knew, or I thought I had a relationship. And that is it's so laughable to me now, because it was not, I did not have one. And something tells me that, the majority of our Catholic friends have that same kind of misconception. They think they know the faith, they think know what Catholicism is all about, but, we don't. And so simply starting with number one, build that relationship. And what does that look like? It looks like what you do with your friend. You go to coffee, you have a chat, you do it once a week, and then you start this habit of doing it regularly. You put it on your calendar, that is what I would hope that our women in our group could do, is simply get to know and get to hear and understand his voice. That was another thing too, that as I was going through this journey, is I would envy my friends, my Catholic friends, new Catholic women friends, who would say, "Oh, I hear God's voice telling me this," and I'm like, "What? How does that voice even sound like?"
I know, right?
Hear his voice, and it's always a good envy, right? But it's amazing how now I've grown that I can experience God in all ways, and I kind of wrote about this too, as far as experiential faith. That's what's so beautiful about our faith, is that you can experience God in all the senses. visually, audio, even face. That's like the pinnacle, right? Where we get to go to Mass and receive our Lord in Eucharist. So it's so sad to think about all like those years wasted. We say, oh, we're wasting time. Yeah, because you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would recommend. And I think the women in our group do get that. And we all join at different levels and in different states. Some are more, more well versed in their faith. I was truly a rookie, and I still am. But we can guide all levels, for the newbies to the veterans. I think if we can help build that faith at whatever level that they're at, and then take it to the workplace, oh my gosh, we would be such an army of women.
Oh,
right?
I know. I love that quote from Mother Angelica, who said, imagine if all the Catholics were Catholic. Like, imagine, But I loved what you said about, building up that relationship with the Lord, and how you were kind of laughing, like your friends are hearing his voice or whatever. You're like, what? And I was reminded of this because last week I just had a prayer encounter that I was reminded of this, to just take this relationship more in silence, so you can hear him. Because I think a lot of the times we're petitioning, or maybe even just thanking, which is all good, but you also just need to take time to receive. And I think overall we don't do enough of that. Just take time to receive. But you also said something too about all of our senses, especially with our faith. I mean, God created our imagination, such a beautiful thing. Use it. It's okay to use it in prayer. And I think especially for women who maybe are trying to come back to the faith, or whatever may be going on, if they feel like all the prayer needs to be rote prayer, or certain prayers that they have to recite, it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like you said, sit down and have coffee with Jesus. I mean, that's okay. Kind of jumping off one of your other points as well, is just, especially in the secular workplace, and in any workplace, frankly, but and especially in the times that we find ourselves in, these kind of unique times right now in 2023, of be the joy, be the light. The world's a hot mess. We don't need more people talking about the hot mess. We need people who are going to be warriors for the light, and who are going to be joyful. So even if you're in a position where, hey, let's be real, you're not going to be evangelizing every day of your life, but you may be evangelizing in how you show up, in your attitude, in your performance, because if people are constantly seeing you persevere with a challenge, or if they're constantly seeing you having joy, they're going to wonder what's going on with you, and they might want to have some coffee with you and ask what's going on, and you're probably going to get a chance to say what. And that reminds me of there's a great quote from, I think it's St. Francis of Assisi, who said, preach the gospel always, and if necessary, use words. Right? Yeah. So this is all easier said than done. I get it, but that is also to say, I know we're not always in a position where we can, use the words that we would really love to convey, right? But how can you convey it in your behavior, in your actions, in your values, that people can see?
Right.
And then they're going to start asking questions. So has there ever been a time in, your work where you were able to convey that, and maybe you couldn't use the words like you're in CCD class, but maybe there was just a time where you felt like you could really tap into your faith in a work situation? Can you think of anything where that might have come up?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I'm so glad you're touching on this, because this is truly the essence of what CWP wants to help, like provide resources tangible resources that we can take into the workplace to ultimately, hopefully evangelize. And that looks very different across industry, across position. There are many, members of CWP, for example, that are in roles that may not allow them to, just speak the word. So, but actions 100%. And I love that you said, be the light, because that is something I tell my twins every single morning. I drop them off to school. I said, be the light to all the kids in your class today. Similarly, I would like for us as women in the workplace to be the light to our colleagues. And so how can we do those in simple ways? Well, my very favorite one, which is what I love to do, is smile. Simply smile. It's amazing how I'll walk into a workplace and I try to put on the biggest smile that I can. And in fact, I joke around with my girls. I said, we have to work our smile muscles, physically move them up and down like an exercise, because it is difficult for some who have not done that very often, right? So I would start there, smiling. And we talk about this, Liz, you and I, through CWP and through our contributing articles with Catholic Women in Business and Catholic Mom. But, sacramentals is a wonderful way at the workplace to showcase our faith, wearing our jewelry, our miraculous medals, because they are just so subtle. And if someone wanted to ask about it, they do, right? And that's a chance to talk about our faith. Other ways are simply inviting someone, a colleague that we feel comfortable with, and letting them know, I'm going to Mass. Would you like to join me? That's, a deeper level, and sharing our faith. I was not so good at sharing my faith in corporate because I was afraid of the ramifications, right? Would I be labeled? Would I be judged? But once you start, again, deepening your faith, you build that moral courage. And so now, granted, I'm in a lucky position where I work at a Catholic university, so it is easier for me. But even so, not everyone around me is in the faith. But then it goes back to the smiling and being a light and being joyful. And someone could say, this is a lot easier said than done, right? Because we all have challenges, we all have suffering. We all have loss, and yes, and it is hard, but that's what our faith does to us. It makes us strong, and it helps us to smile through the suffering, right? And like you said, once you are showcasing those actions, people start to wonder, well, what is her secret formula? I want some of that. And so ultimately, we're recruiting for Team Jesus. That's what we're trying to do.
That's awesome. Recruiting for Team Jesus. I love that. I'm going to make a poster of that. And I think you're right. I mean, I think just listening to the podcast, you can hear a smile, so even if you're on the phone with somebody, you can hear a smile. And I love that. And there's just simple things like that. And and it's, to your point of, yes, are you going to have challenging times at work and bad days? And of course you are. I mean, that doesn't, that's life. Like, welcome to life. So, but it is through, our everyday crosses that we grow. I mean, if you're not having a challenge, or if you're not failing, and I just shared this on my last podcast, I mean, if you're not failing at something right now, you're not trying. So if you're not trying, what are you doing? Failure is an event, not a person, and we always grow through our crosses. So those crosses come to us in so many ways, in family, at school, at work. So that doesn't mean you're not going to have a bad day. That doesn't mean you're not going to have a difficult coworker. But if you start to lean on your faith more in those situations, I think you're going to have better peace of mind. At least that was the experience for me. So, so thank you for sharing that. Fantastic. So this group is Catholic Women Professionals. How do we get in it? Like, can anybody sign up?
Thank you for asking, because it's so easy. I've actually had some people email and say, well, how do I get to be a member? And I said, anyone is automatically a member. You're in. Again, it's just to connect. I have a background in marketing, communications, business development. So I'm a natural connector, and that's what I love to do. And so my intent is that you come and join us, whether it be for a virtual meetup or, an in-person. We're going to connect you. We're going to connect you to people that you want to meet, that could help you in your faith and or your professional role. That's another great part of this. The benefit is that you're also networking for business. So you can simply go onto our website, sign up for our monthly newsletters. The cool part of this too is you get to promote your business, any upcoming events or initiatives that are happening at your local parish. I mean, again, we want to be a hub for Catholic working women to know what's coming up, what's around you, what's helpful for, resources to deepen your faith and to ultimately come together.
I love that. Fantastic. And I'm going to place all of that in the show notes. So if you're listening, please look at the show notes. You'll get the link. I love the newsletters. They are just chock full and you always have a spotlight. So it's great to get to know the other women. And yeah, don't be afraid. I think I'm like one of the few East Coast people in this group. So don't be afraid to, broaden your horizons and meet people. I mean, we have people from all over the world in that group. So, so it's very exciting. So definitely check it out. And wonderful. Lilia, what's currently going on? Is there anything, coming up, like any event coming up that you need to share or anything else you wanted to share with us?
Well, just given the circumstances that I'm actually physically located in the Pacific Northwest, I'm actually based in Washougal, Washington. There are a lot of events available for women living in the area. We have an initiative called Faith Moments 2023 that we are working in tangent with Faith Moments, hosted by Dina Marie Hale, who is a CWP member. And if you go onto our website, you'll see all the fantastic events kind of under this umbrella of Renew, Refresh, and Retreat for this year. So there's opportunities to tap into some local area offerings. We have the Grotto in Portland. We have Mount Angel Abbey in Oregon. So please do check those out, especially if you live in the Northwest. But if not, we're also posting upcoming events across the country. As you mentioned, there are East Coast opportunities, so I want to see more that I can share. And you're always more than welcome to meet other women under the CWP headline, or if you want to meet for coffee and don't know the person yet, just say, hey, I'm a Catholic Women Professional member, let's meet up, right? So yep. Again, we just want to share as much as possible.
Love that. Thank you so much, Lilia. Yes. All right, well, this was great. Let's go back to our scripture verse, and I always love coming back to this because I feel like it always just highlights what we talked about, or we find something new in it. But again, this is Galatians chapter 6, verses 9 through 10. Let us not grow tired of doing good, for in due time we shall reap our harvest if we do not give up. So then, while we have the opportunity, let us do good to all, but especially to those who belong to the family of faith. And you've created a family of faith with CWP, Lilia.
Thank you. It's been such a blessing and a gift.
All right, friends, let's get growing and keep blooming. Thank you again, Lilia. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Keep Blooming. Tune in every Wednesday for a dose of hope and encouragement. You can find this podcast on Anchor, Spotify, and Google and Apple Podcasts. To be the first to know about my upcoming retreats and latest offerings, be sure to hop onto my email list. Have a wonderful week and remember to keep blooming.